As the boxing world is fully aware by now, Deontay Wilder has retained his WBC heavyweight title via a split draw. As soon as I heard split decision, I just thought they were going to give it to Deontay, but instead, Fury just got mostly screwed. The guy who I believe won, and most of the boxing world believe won through superior ring generalship, and just pretty much clearly outboxing him, apart from those little moments of disaster. Now, had the last round knockdown been, say, round 10, preceding the initial one in round 9, I think the word robbery would be getting thrown around even more. It's the fact that Wilder has left us with that indelible scene of Fury flattened out that has perhaps made this decision just a little bit more palatable. But what drama. It was awesome. It was good for boxing. I've since watched the last round knockdown on lots of different spectators' phones, and just the reaction from the crowd after that happens, people standing up, holy moly, and just the fact you initially react to the knockdown, the fact he's gone, then you react to the fact he somehow got up. It really encapsulates, to me, in those moments, why boxing is the sport of the world. Now, a word on the scores. One Alejandro Roshin gives it to Wilder 115-111. I don't know whether this person is in some sort of competition for the world's worst scorecard with CJ Ross, but that's pretty shocking. The fact this person actually gave Wilder rounds 3 and 4 at a time when I thought Fury was clearly starting to make this his fight. It was clear at that point that he was in the driver's seat after the cagey start. To give Wilder those rounds when his boxing is nowhere, out at sea, as I like to say, is corruption, isn't it? As soon as the fight ended, actually, Malignaggi was on one again, poorly that is, as he often does. He's very vocal about these things. And with stuff like that, rounds 3 and 4 to Wilder, no way. Our very own Phil Edwards scores it a draw and gives Wilder rounds 6 and 7. Apart from perhaps the first or the second and then the knockdown rounds, I really find it hard to give Wilder any of the rounds. Now, if you're to believe or look at the punch stats, and a lot of people do when decisions are in question, apparently in terms of punches landed, it was only 84 landed for Fury to 71 for Wilder. That's only a 13 punch difference. Now, a lot of people often reference that in terms of how close the fight was. Rather stupidly, this is not amateur boxing. And the big difference here, why Fury did deserve to win, ring generalship. Now, in a lot of these rounds, Fury wasn't really landing that clean, but he was fighting in his preferred range, and Wilder was often frustrated and forced to just cover up. He tried to throw his own jab, but it was like a get away from me jab where he wasn't stepping in with it. He was clearly uncomfortable. And then most importantly, Fury was clearly foiling his efforts by continually getting underneath the right hand. Now, why does that matter? Well, when boxing was first really revived in England, it was known as the manly art of self-defense. It was about knowing how to get away from attacks. It's not rock'em sock'em robots. There's the big difference. And Fury was clearly making the man from Alabama play to his tune. He was scooping up the rounds. It was evident in their body language. It was clear. The Fancy Dan, he is a bit of a Fancy Dan, he was making it work. And Wilder wasn't getting his jab going. He was occasionally throwing the right, and it was real messy. It was ugly to watch. For a guy who's pretty low volume as it is, he was reduced to just almost sleepwalking in there because of how awkward the Gypsy King is. Now, it was impressive to see Wilder deck him in that last round. It showed that perseverance, that grit, having been so frustrated when your boxing's nowhere, and to still come back and produce a result like that in the last round. Fair play to him. He stuck good to his word initially. Before the fight, he spoke about how I'm not going to be like Klitschko. I'm not going to be like this robotic guy who relies on control and will freak out if I'm behind. I'm going to be throwing punches. He did just that, and he very almost completely tore up the script there. Well, in terms of what the fight told us, Fury clearly ahead. He almost just absolutely produced a sensational ending there, but it didn't quite happen. Great drama though. For Fury, he seems pretty happy whatever. his main victory here is his victory over his mental health issues. You know, he made almost like a bit of a Rocky microcosm there with him being on the deck and getting up. He said he did it for all people struggling in life, for people with depression, which is a great thing. And it really was kind of Larry Holmes, Ernie Shavers-esque. He hits the deck, he appears lifeless. His eyes lock on Jack Reese, the referee, and then woof, he's up again as if some spirits just animated him. It was pretty awesome to see. And not only that, really showing that he is a fighting man, as he and his dad like to say. He tried to get stuck in as well. He wasn't just trying to skirt around and survive. So there's a lot to be admired, actually, character-wise, from both fighters. There's going to be a rematch. They're going to get that lucrative rematch. The powers that be. We remember the first Lennox Lewis-Evan Holyfield fight, which wasn't close. There's always big reasons to secure a rematch. The unusual thing now is, where does it leave AJ? It kind of leaves him in the dark. Lennox Lewis was recently interviewed by Kugan Cassius. It's just a short interview, but he mentions how, he says, where does AJ go? And precisely, everybody knows now, who really knows their boxing, where the action is. You've got the three top guys, AJ and Fury and Wilder, and they need to figure it all out. Who's going to win? With AJ, he's got an obligation to fulfill in Wembley in April. If Dylan White beats Chisora, is it going to be the Dylan White rematch? Yes, that will sell. Yes, a lot of people recognise White, but it really doesn't mean anything in the grand context of things, does it? And considering the respective improvements, as I've said before, I see AJ really getting rid of White and it basically not meaning much. So it is healthy and good in a way. I even found it amusing the way having both Wilder and Fury just fought. They both kind of teamed up and said that AJ's chicken and that they're the best heavyweights. That was kind of amusing. But it's all good. You need to get a bit of that needle in there. It's good to have the attention taken away from AJ. I hope that Wilder now is a bit more known. Hopefully he's not hated as much in the US with the fact that he didn't deserve the draw. He conducted himself well after, and likewise Fury. He said he didn't want to say robbery. There was more of he really exercised his demons in this fight, which is the main thing. So, rematch, the UK, the US, who knows? The main thing is the heavyweight division has definitely just got a bit more interesting.